Welcome in to Coach's Corner. Jordan Woodruff with you. Great to have you along. As today we're joined by track coach Steve McHenry, and this episode brought to you by First National Bank of Oklahoma here in Ponca City. And we are in the midst, Coach. Good to have you along, but we're in the midst of track and field season right now.
Yeah, we're hitting the stride right now. We've got our home meet this Friday, so we're pretty excited.
What's it like having the home meet? Naturally you go, everybody else, but it's all hands on deck for a school when you have a meet because you have a lot of kids coming in.
Yeah, it's the whole staff. Everyone has an assignment they got to do, and it's busy, but we're pretty comfortable doing it now. Same staff, we've been together a while, and I think it runs pretty smooth. But it's one of those things that you're doing more work than you are coaching your kids or watching and timing your kids. So that trade off's not good, but. It's worth not having to travel 2 hours somewhere for track meet.
Yeah, I was going to say, everywhere you go, you got to travel, it seems like,
Yeah.
where you're at in Ponca. Talk about kind of maybe the challenges of the home meet, though. Like, what are some of the stuff that you guys usually have trouble when you're trying to organize this?
Well, it's just, making sure all the events are covered. You got five field events. You got to make sure there's a competent coach running that event. You got to make sure they have helpers. And then, we have someone that's doing the announcing, and a couple of Coach Landis and Coach Estrada run the finish line, and the main Coach Parent. Coach Parent's been the announcer, but he gave it up this year for Coach Shellhorse doing that for us. So thankful for that. But me and Coach Parent, we just kind of move around, just help wherever we need to be or needs help.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's rewarding, too. And, it's great for the kids to be able to run on their home track.
Yeah, they get excited. They look forward to it. Their parents get to come. So it's a lot of fun. You'll see a bunch of their friends show up throughout the day. They'll try to catch the time when they're running, too. So.
Yeah, what's it like to set the schedules? For you and Coach Parent with that, because it's. I would imagine you got an idea because you go to them all the time, but I would imagine trying to set those schedules could be tough when you're doing this many events.
The order of events is pretty standard, and we've been running the same one we've run since I've been coaching here. I know some other meets they do them a little different, but it's pretty standard. There's just a couple of different order events out there that people follow, so just pick one and just go with it.
All right, now let's talk a little bit about the team. Tell us how your team's been doing this year.
This year's been kind of a little different. Last couple of years, our middle distance has been our strength, our distance. This year it's been kind of our sprinters, so it's been a 400 relay and 800 relay. They've medaled the most of times they've run. And, it's been kind of exciting to have good sprinters out there. The mile relay is coming along. We've always had, a pretty good mile relay, and that's just now coming into play. But the sprints have been a strength so far.
Yeah, and talk about some of the standouts this year.
But for the relay, it's been Avon Hobbs, Luke Byer-Grossline, Gavin Cunningham, and Cole Runnels. And then we have a couple of others, like Luke Larson's coming along in the 400. Trent Jackson came out from basketball for the first time, and he's doing well. And, we got some throwers that have done well, too. Mike Hesseltine, Cooper Leonard, Evan Pice, those guys, they've been around a while, so they've been improving, too. So it's not just runners.
Yeah, and the thing is, track and field a lot of times, you guys coach other sports as assistants and such, but when you look at track and field, it's a great supplement sport for those other athletes to keep them active during the spring.
Yeah, I did junior high for a long time before I moved to the high school staff. My selling point was always, it's going to make you a better athlete if you come to track and work hard, take it serious, and try to get better. It doesn't matter if you play soccer, baseball, girls are cheerleaders, high steppers. It doesn't matter. Anything you do, you'll benefit by running and jumping. So, to me, that's been a selling point for my whole career, and then hopefully kids start to believe in that more than they used to believe that more. Now they believe in it less and less because they stay in off season and whatever sports they like to focus on. But we try to get out as many as we can.
Well, 16, 17 is a lot easier to run and stay active than it is when you get our ages, right?
Oh, no doubt about that.
So I enjoy watching them run now.
Right, exactly.
So far a good season overall.
Yeah, we've done well. I would say when we go to meets, we've been finishing, in the top 6, 8, 10, somewhere in that range. And there's usually about somewhere in 15, 20, 18 teams there. We're kind of either in the middle of the pack or a little above that. And, Yeah, I've been happy, with what we're doing overall. They've improved their times. They've gotten better. The people we run against, especially those first three meets. We went to Edmond Deer Creek, Edmond North, and we went to Moore. And those are all
Yeah.
good, tough meets. So we were happy with the way we performed at those meets.
I was going to say, I mean, we talk about it with each sport, and it seems like the broken record, but there is so many tremendous athletes, especially when you get down to some of those city schools.
Right.
I mean, there's kids that you're running against that could be at a high major college level before long, or you're going up and getting the field against. So it is challenging. So just to get the good finishes that you get, you gotta be respectful of that.
Yeah, that's what the kids that we have that have been out. They understand that. If you don't normally run track and you think, man, we didn't do too well, but it's a little different. So
Yeah.
you got to take a lot of that into perspective, understand where you're at, where have you been, where you're going. You're competing against yourself, but mainly because you want your times to come down and improve. But also, when you're at meet, you want to compete well against those people. But if you're competing well and your PR, what can you say? You got to be satisfied.
Well, you got to remember, only one person every 4 years wins a gold medal, right?
Exactly.
You're like in a track and field event. So it's one of those that, like you said, there's more of the personal achievement for
Right.
yourself. What can you gain out of it? And that goes back into being a great supplement for other sports. You're going to get better to maybe help yourself elsewhere.
Right. It was funny. Like Coach Birnbaum was telling some of our guys this, and about 3 or 4 days later, Rollo was out there one day. He was telling them that the thing about track, it's all you. I mean, there's no one else helping you. I mean, it's whether you want to take the time and put in the effort to improve and get better and go compete, or if you don't want to, you don't do it. But there's no one to blame. There's no refs. It's on you. So it's kind of a personal sport.
Well, I like those track days myself because that was those were fun. Those bus, I mean, out of all the sports, and there's some athletes that do multiple things, but all the sports, it's you go, you do an event or two, and then you kind of have downtime. You're really a good bonding with your teammates. That's one thing I always liked about track and field.
Yeah, yeah. To me, they're fun. I mean, if you really look at it, you're doing this. If you go to track meet, say you're a sprinter and you run the 100 in like 11 seconds and the 222 and a half, that's 33 and a half seconds, and maybe a 400. You're talking less than 2 minutes of work.
Right.
At a meet, then you get to hang out with your friends all day. So and you're out of school, so that's
a selling point.
That's another thing. But it is. It's a relaxing sport. I mean, when you're running, competing, yes, it's difficult, but the overall, the social part of it, it's big. They enjoy themselves and have a good time.
No, that was one thing I remember from track and field. It was always the social. Like you said, you're out of school, you're with your friends, and you go and compete in your event. You're very competitive at that moment. But then, regardless of what happens, you are seeing people, and sometimes people from other schools that you play other sports against, and it just becomes it's a good camaraderie is the best way to put it.
Especially if you go to the same area, like we went to the Oklahoma City area 3 times. We saw about half of them were the same schools, 3 weeks in a row. And you have a few here and there that we haven't seen. But, nowadays, social media, the kids know who each other are. They know, and they're familiar with each other. So, seeing each other in person, it's kind of it's a fun thing for them.
Yeah. Well, last thing for you, I kind of want to ask, and I'll do the same with Coach Parent coming up here in a little bit, but who are some of the ones that you have expectations, because naturally you would love to get some people qualified for state meet. So who are some of the ones you think could get qualified this year?
Well, I think our relay has a good chance. The one I mentioned, the 400 relay and the 800 relay have been running well. We've got to still get our time down, and we got to fine tune that with handoffs, and maybe adjust people's overall distance in those relays. But I think they got a good chance if they keep improving. And the mile relay, I hope that comes around, and because that's my favorite race, and we've been doing well at it. And this year we just kind of been taking our time getting there, because we had lost 2 guys that were on it, and we just had some young guys or some guys that haven't run a track before. It's tough to convince people to run a 400.
Yeah.
And they're running well. So we've been kind of taking our time on that, but it's starting to round into shape. So I think the Mario will be doing well too.
And you think it's like, how hard is it to get that baton to the other? That is something very hard because you're completely spent no matter what the distance is, and then you're trying to hand off to somebody who's fresh, and that is, that's the difference in 2 seconds and winning a meet or losing a meet or placing in a meet, and it's a lot tougher than what people think it is.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's if I didn't coach track or wasn't familiar with track, I would probably think that, that's not a big deal. Just hand it to the next person. But they're coming full speed. They're trying to stay at full speed. That's the thing. You got to keep running hard through the handoff, and the guys getting out, they got to do a good job of getting out fast.
Well, and as a coach, you're always like, oh my. Every exchange, I'm sure there's a kind of a heart drop a little bit because you're like. They got to get it right. They're in this mix. Can they get it right?
Yeah, especially that 400 relay. I've always said that's kind of a roll of the dice. You got one lap, 4 guys all handing the baton off, and 3 of them receiving it. It's just, it's kind of, like you said, there's a lot of room for error in that race. So it's just what it is. So you just got to keep practicing.
Yeah. Well, Coach, appreciate your time and best of luck.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing those kids at this home meet and beyond. This has been your Coach's Corner. It's been brought to you by First National Bank of Oklahoma here in Ponca City. And Coach, appreciate your time.
Thank
As
you.
always, Steve McHenry. And that'll do it. Jordan Woodruff saying so long. And until next time, go Cats.